So the Chapter of Excellence program, what is it, and why are we using it? I personally think the Chapter of Excellence program is just a really good process to follow in making sure that your chapter is doing not only the basics of what it means to be a Skills USA chapter, but going beyond that. And you start that with the first level of Level One. The national office says it's the single best way to build a successful Skills USA chapter. We have chapters recognized nationwide, and we also recognize them here in California. Last year, our chapters of excellence, which received Model of Excellence awards, are posted on our state website. And we are fortunate enough to have a chapter recognized at the national level as well. All of those chapters had earned some chapter incentive dollars. So we'll tell you a little bit more about how you could be eligible for that as well. There are chapter resources available by clicking on that link, which we will go to in just a moment. But if you're looking for a step-by-step process on how to be an active and productive Skills USA chapter, this Chapter of Excellence program is the way to go. So, like I said, we're talking specifically about Level One. If you have any questions, please be sure to put them in the chat. We will definitely address whatever questions you might have. So we are talking about Level One. Now, in order to be able to compete in our regional championships that are coming up early spring, you not only need to be a member of Skills USA California, but your chapter needs to have completed Level One by November 13th. And yes, that's 10 days away, but it is still attainable. Even if you haven't done some of the things on the list yet, it's still something that you can get done. So we're going to go through this list real quick, and then we're going to jump in to a chapter, and I'll show it to you live on how you complete that Level One. And then I'll give you some teasers on Level Two. So for Level One, here are the basic things that you need to do, and we'll give you some examples down below on a few of those. So you need to join your members. That seems pretty logical. You probably already have done that, and if not, you just need to register your chapters and your student members. Each section that you register into the chapter needs to have an advisor of that program. So if your chapter happens to have 4 programs such as carpentry, graphic arts, culinary arts, robotics, each one of those programs needs to have a professional member registered in the chapter, and those members registered with that advisor. So those are 2 things that we do every year, regardless of your participation. You register members. So most of you could probably already check those off your list. Elect chapter officers. So this is where student leadership comes into place, and you want to be able to empower your students. And those of you who are students on the call, this is where you guys shine. You and your peers should meet and elect officers to represent their chapter. And so Layali, she is our state president, but Layali, what position were you at your chapter last year?
That's a great question. I did not have a position last year. I jumped a bit. I took a few extra leaps.
So that's not uncommon, and unfortunately it's not uncommon, but here's the thing. It would be a natural progression for your students to have been a chapter officer first before running for a state office. And that should be done, usually it's done at the beginning of the year. And some chapters actually elect their next slate of officers at the end of the previous year. So it is up to you when you hold those elections. Brand new chapters often will put together some students that want to take on those roles, and they'll create that board or that those officers from that, and then from there they would go on each year to electing amongst their chapter members. Next, you need to be having meetings. So they need to be planned, they need to be regularly scheduled, whether your chapter meets every week, every month, bi-weekly. That is completely up to your chapter. Your officers should be planning those meetings. And I do know that Layali and her state officer team have weekly meetings via Zoom every week, and they have an agenda. So that would be where the well-planned portion comes in, and they're regularly scheduled because they do meet every week. So if those of you are struggling with virtual meetings, our state officers did a wonderful job at the Fall Leadership Conference of explaining just how that can be done. And they would be happy to share that with you in your chapter. The next thing is that you need to complete a projected chapter budget. And so there are some templates available, and I'm going to be showing you where to find those. And this is where the students really get to understand, you know, where the funds are coming from, to whether it's to pay for their membership or it's to cover the cost of an event that they would like to host, whether it's a community service, a social, obviously things under the virtual parameters, you know, there's not going to be as much budgeting items, but maybe they want to do a community service project and it's going to take a little bit of budget to make that happen. Things like that. If they're attending conferences, such as the regional conferences, how much does that cost and where do those funds come from to do that? So making sure that they understand what it takes to manage the chapter from a financial perspective. Then they must complete a program of work. And in essence, a program of work is a schedule of events that they will participate in as a chapter throughout the school year. I'll show you some resources on that. There is a brand new toolkit within the registration system that lays it out beautifully. And I could do a whole session just on the program of work. So if you've completed a plan for your year and it aligns with the program of work, you'll be able to mark that indicator off pretty easily as well. And then conducting at least one activity within the framework. So within each component, we have 17 essential elements, right, in our Skills USA framework, within personal skills, workplace skills, and technical skills grounded in academics. Having a specific activity that intentionally touches on one of those elements. And this kind of activity, it does not have to be like a really big activity. And Mr. Tycho, one of our state officer trainers, can probably give us a really good example of a simple activity. So I'll call you out in just a minute because I can see you up there on my screen. But one of the things that you can simply do, especially in a virtual environment, is maybe doing a brain dump of what you know about the specific skill, and then working through those things. Mr. Tycho, you want to share with us one of the little activities? I'm saying little because you can also do some really structured activities around this as well, but he's going to unmute himself. Can you hear me, Mr. There he is.
Yeah. So this week we actually are starting on project management and decision making. So students are deciding on which competitions to compete in. So it's part of the decision making in the Unit 6 of our Career Essentials. We've been doing some meetings, so we're working on communication and in teamwork and helping each other out with using Zoom at school.
Nice.
As far as projects, it has been a challenge just because we're so far apart, but they're communicating with trying to decide which competitions they're able to compete in, because it is tough, and construction is going to be a tough one, but we're having them look into the leadership side of it.
Nice. So that's great. I've never been given an example specifically about decision making, but I really like that. During some of our live events, we've done things like using the Skills USA framework thumb ball, where we could toss it around and interact with the students. That way, the Skills USA framework cards also give a lot of ideas on specific activities that you can do, and they're easily converted to virtual. One of the ones I liked doing with students last year was creating a promotional poster regarding a specific framework skill, and seeing what they came up with was really quite interesting. Everything from a fork in the road for decision making to ways that they could communicate better with one another by illustrating it. So little activities like that, and nothing that in this level that would take huge amounts of planning, because in level 2 it gets really deep and the students get to do some real intentional activities that take some planning to do. And so I see that we have some questions coming up in the chat right now that I kind of want to address before we get to the next section. Are the activities within the 3 framework components part of the program of work that needs to be completed? So our framework elements can be applied to all areas of the program of work. And when you start intentionally looking at each of those individual skills, you're often going to use multiple elements, framework elements, while conducting your program of work. So for this level, you just kind of need to have one activity around these 3. You're going to be asked to complete a sentence describing that. At level 1, you're not going to be asked to upload lots of documentation. Okay, it's not going to be something that is hard to attain. Level 1 is to get you, put in a place of being ready to get into the meat of things. Yes, Mr. Mitchell, there are 6 elements of the program of work. I will show you where you will find that link, and we are going to be getting to that just shortly. So where I'm going to be taking you next, and I know we only have about like 10-15 minutes, so I'm going to be taking you into the online system. And students, this is something your teachers have access to. I'm also going to show you the resources on the national website, just so you know where they are and how to get them. And so if you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to click on over to that. And okay, so I am on the National Skills USA national website, and under programs, you're going to find Chapter of Excellence program. And here, students and advisors, you're going to find this this booklet here that will take you through the steps of SMART goals, take you through the planning elements regarding getting on to that next level, the Chapter of Excellence program. And as we scroll down, there's a neat little video here that really demonstrates the why we get involved in the Chapter of Excellence program. But what I really want to show you on this page is these resources. So where I found that list right here for level 1 just falls right under here. So when you're ready to look at level 2, you're going to be able to find all the elements on level 2 right there. And if we scroll down just a little bit more, I want you to see that there are some program management tools, there are templates, there's a rubric, there's lesson plans, the teacher's guide, a sample budget, teacher created resources. So this is just a really great place for you to find things that you might need to get that application submitted. And then for today, we're going to head over to a chapter, and I am Mr. Tycho today, so I hope you don't mind. I'm always in impostery and over. Yeah, he's looking at me and yeah, thanks. So we are in this school. They are currently still registering members, but what I would like to show you is a few things here. Besides the membership portal, you're going to see that there's a membership tool, a program of work toolkit, and a framework integration toolkit that you have access to. And then this Chapter of Excellence program. And this is where you're going to find the application. This is where you're going to go to complete this. And it's very simple. And Mr. Tycho, if you don't mind, I'm going to add a new one for your chapter for now. Okay. I'm not going to complete this for you. You're going to have to still go back in and do that. So you'll notice here that it says the Chapter of Excellence application is due February 26th. That is the final deadline when you're completing level 2. But for level 1, if your chapter wants to be eligible to compete, is November 13th. You have until February 26th to complete the second level in order to be considered for judging those next level applications. So we just add a new application here. Note this little video icon right here. This is if you get stuck and you want some assistance. Also, if it's during office hours, the national staff has a little chat down here at the bottom, very helpful. But we add a new application, and there we go. So here we have our new application, and then we're just going to go in and we're going to start to edit it. And I'm not going to be saving this because Mr. Tycho and his chapter will fill this in, but you can complete this as a chapter or section. So most chapters do it by chapter. So for all the programs within their chapter, they complete one, but some schools may choose to each complete their own chapter of excellence per section. And they can do that, but most chapters choose to work together as a whole. So obviously we need to complete some primary information here about the school and the contact information. So, you know, Mr. Tycho is our lead advisor at this chapter, and we're going to give him a bogus phone number in this case, but please use the correct one. And what we want from here is to complete this application. And this is it. This is all of level 1, just this one page. So right there, that should feel a little less intimidating. We want to know how many total members that we have that are unduplicated. So if your total membership right now, they haven't added all of their chapter members. So right now it looks like they only have 6, but if you had 150, you would put that number in here. And then we're going to certify. So we're going to enter the students, the president. So this is our student leadership. We're going to enter their name and email for the president, secretary, and the advisor's name, who is leading the chapter officers, and then your administrator's name and email that is aware of your participation, usually your principal or vice principal, whoever has awareness of your participation in Skills USA. And then you'll just complete this next portion where you do a yes or no indicator once you have completed those indicators. So did you submit your membership? Yes. Did you add your advisors? Yes. Did you elect chapter officers? Yes. If you don't have chapter officers, then you would have had trouble putting a president and secretary into those places above. And so if you click no, then you're not finishing those indicators necessary. So you're going to need to come back as a group and elect your officers. Okay. Have you had well-planned and conducted regularly scheduled meetings? Yes or no? So if you had, I'm going to just throw it out there, 3 or more meetings, I think that you could say yes to this. If you're meeting monthly, obviously you're meeting a little less, but if you're meeting weekly or biweekly, you would have met several times more than that. Has your chapter completed a chapter budget? And as I showed you, there was a sample budget that you can use, especially if you're first starting out. And then your program of work, have you created that schedule that aligns with the program of work? And so there is information that you can click on for each one of these if you need more explanation. And once you have yeses on all of those, you'll just complete a sentence about the activity that you did. So maybe for professionalism, you can say, you know, that you did an exercise about handshakes or professional dress, and you'll just create a sentence structured around what activity you did to validate what you did. You only want to pick one of those from each section, because you cannot repeat that same element in level 2. You're going to pick new elements in level 2. So I've seen it where people have picked all 6, and it's like, so what are you going to try and work on in level 2? So just pick one. Don't try and do all things on all of this. So if we want to work on adaptability and flexibility, that's an easy one for us right now, because we're all living it every day. So in our workplace skills, if we are talking about planning, organizing, and management, we could say, you know, something to the effect that the chapter officers work together to create a program of work and schedule our meetings for the next school year. And so it's that simple for level 1. Once you have completed level 1, you'll hit save. And if it's completed in its entirety, you are good. And you will be able to open up level 2 of the Chapter of Excellence program and be able to dabble in that this first year, unless you've already kind of figured out what you'd like to do. It would be difficult by February 26th to complete level 2, but not impossible. Chapters do it all the time. Students are remarkable at coming up with creative ways to do this kind of thing. So I'm going to stop right here for a second. Does anybody have questions about this application that I have here on the screen? I don't have my chat box open, Ashley.
Loretta?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. Robin Luther mentions, is the campus administrator one of our professional members for the chapter, or is it the principal administrator for the school?
Okay, so yes. We want them to be professional members of the organization. They're not required to be professional members of the organization. So, I mean, I think that it would be a really great thing for you to invite them in as members of your organization. And they would also be able to have access to those professional tools, like the program of work, the framework tools, the technical standards for competitions, the career essentials, because they have that membership with Skills USA California. But if they are not professional members, this is more of an awareness piece. They could have been the administrator that signed up on your chapter application. Many of you might not remember who that was, or that person might not be with your school anymore. So I would just encourage you to make sure you have an administrator on your campus that knows that Skills USA is part of your program, and so that you're gaining their support through first awareness, and then hopefully you'll share your successes with them as well. Okay.
Great. And there's another one here.
Thank you.
Do they have to be activities that have been done, or is it okay if they're scheduled activities for December, January, etc.?
So for the level 1, they need to have, it needs to be done. So, or, yeah, they need to have been done. So you still have time to do some of these, and you can do one chapter meeting with all 3 activities in it. If you think about it, you can do these activities within your classroom too. So if your students happen to, you have all your students, because we are a total participation plan. So doing them within your classroom, it doesn't have to be done in a chapter meeting environment. So, you know, having an intentional conversation about one of the elements, having a brain dump on the screen and annotate with, you know, the tools from Zoom or Google Classroom, have them, you know, even having them journal is an activity about what do they already know and understand about one of the elements, and then having a conversation about things that they'd like to learn. What is their level of understanding of a specific element, and do they feel like they have a lot of room to grow, a little room to grow? Some self-reflection goes a long way with these essential elements. Okay.
Right. And then Ms. Estrada asks my favorite question of all time, which
Okay.
comes up all the time. So one chapter advisor completes this?
So I'll go back to whether or not a chapter or section completes this. So every chapter can choose between the chapter doing it or the section doing it. Now, I'm not sure if we should, what I would like to encourage, this is student led. So your students should be preparing these elements, right? This part is where you get them involved in being the leaders of your chapter. So the whole Chapter of Excellence program, whether you're leading the actual activity or the student is, you know, depends on how you want to arrange it. But Layali, I might want to call you to the front again, because you guys put on all the seminars for Fall Leadership Conference for the students, your other state officers and yourself. You guys presented all of your elements and things like that from the students to the students, so peer to peer. So I would encourage that as you work through the Chapter of Excellence program, you want to engage your students in the whole process. And it is up to you as a teacher whether you want them to fill this out physically by logging in and allowing them access to this, or if you'd like them to use the template that was in the resources and provide that to you for you to copy paste into the application itself. That is between you and your students. I've seen it done both ways. Okay. Did that answer the question? I went 2 places on that, so I want to make sure. Okay.
I appreciate that you shared that should have the students involved in doing this, because they're the ones that are supposed to have an understanding of what it is your chapter is doing. As a matter of fact, when you get to that highest level at the national level, when they do the interviews, they don't talk to the advisor at all. They talk to the student representatives that come, and they ask those individuals questions about how they determine how they select the items that they were doing, what did the chapter activities look like. I mean, it's all driven towards the student. So great idea to try and get those students engaged at the lowest level too. Right.
So if this is your app, yeah, if this is your, okay, so we made it. If this is your first year as a chapter, just want to encourage you to work on this in the next 10 days. Yes, some things you might, like with the program of work, it's a projection of your activities, while and that is a yes indicator, because that is a work in progress all school year long. But I know, and I think that you have done activities within your classroom that could represent some of these things within the those activities down below here in the yellow. And I think that you could apply some of the things that you're already doing in class and just be a little bit more intentional about it in the future. But we don't want this to be a barrier for you guys not to be able to have students compete. And students on the call, we want you to be aware of this requirement, because this is for you and about you, and we want to make sure you have access to those competitions as well. But this is about the integrity of the organization and making sure that if you are a member of Skills USA, that you are operating in a chapter, you are being a part of the CTSO, and that we're helping you align your involvement with the criteria that Perkins is putting out and CTIG is putting out. It's all intertwined in that. And when you're done with this application and you hit submit, it produces a printable document that validates your involvement for this level. So I just encourage you. This level one is really not complicated. It's not meant to be a barrier. And I think you'll enjoy looking into that next level, level two. And those who complete level two are eligible for chapter incentive dollars. And we have posted on the state website those incentives that were provided last year. This year, they're only available to those completing level two. And it doesn't matter whether they get a bronze, silver, or gold, they'll all get something. And those monies are divided based on the involvement. So as meant, if there's 100 chapters who complete it, or if there's 50 chapters that complete it. But I'd like to just congratulate California, because last year we're the only state in the nation who had this kind of participation in the Chapter of Excellence program. And while I know it's because we value competitions, we also value student leadership. So this is how you get those students involved. And students, this is, if your advisor doesn't know much, you now know more than them, and you can help walk them through it. We're happy to help you guys achieve those goals. So if you have any questions, feel free to give myself, Mr. Mitchell, your regional managers, email us anytime. We're happy to help you. We want to make sure you get through that. But I know